when you go through the hardest years of your life, you can either let that mess define you, or you can go all in and be like, okay, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? How is this helping me grow, expand, and be in the moment of that messiness? Grief is a part of life, and it's something that we don't share enough of. When someone passes away, we're there for that person those first few weeks. Just like after the funeral, the grieving process still continues for that individual who lost the loved one.
Happy birthday to you. I have to say, I love your approach to the, what do we want to call it? Imperfect perfection is what I'll call it for now. But just the raw authenticity of just showing up and kind of giving your best. I love that.
Well, I believe that each and every one of us is a hot mess, whether we want to admit it or not.
It gives you a lot of freedom to kind of show up as yourself and really be authentic. I love that part, especially. Is that like, how did you really lean into this?
Really good question. So it was back in 2018. I was having dinner with a Facebook friend for the first time. We had met at a conference, and we're sitting there, we're talking, and I had three little words come to me. And I stopped her mid-conversation, picked up my phone, wrote the words down, and I said to her, I don't know what these words mean. I said, but they mean something. And those three little words were hot mess magic. And in that moment, over the course of the rest of the conference and the next few years, they evolved. I learned that those three words were my book. And I then learned and lived the hardest, messiest years of my life. When you go through the hardest years of your life, you can either let that mess define you, or you can go all in and be like, okay, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? How is this helping me grow, expand, and be in the moment of that messiness?
Yeah, I love that. I think the first thing it makes me think of is how many people try to hide their mess by putting some mask on top of it or some just different version of their life in front of it so they can prevent other people from seeing their mess because they're under the understanding that, hey, maybe behind the scenes my life is a mess, but I'm the only one. Everyone else has their life all figured out. Except for me, I'm this magical unicorn where my life is not perfect, and I'm afraid to show people that. Is that sort of what you're seeing from people?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's what we all see on social media. We see this facade. I mean, and we're all guilty of it. We all have things that we've gone through that we don't want people to know, and that's okay. The world does not need to know all of your business. It's sharing those parts of yourself in those moments that you want to share. And also having that, and having your people, sharing your shit with your people.
Yeah, I think there's a really big difference between the feeling of having to air out all of your dirty laundry, which I don't think is necessary, versus having to be authentic with what you share. Like, you don't have to share all of the negative stuff, but you can't just pretend it doesn't exist. Like, I think that's a fine line people have to figure out how to navigate.
Exactly, because in 2022, I unexpectedly lost my dad, and then 3 weeks later, I lost my grandma. And I shared that grief journey in my Instagram stories. Not because I felt that I had to, but because grief is a part of life, and it's something that we don't share enough of. When someone passes away, we're there for that person when they've lost their loved one. We're there for them, those first few days, those first few weeks, it's like after the funeral, the grieving process still continues for that individual who lost the loved one. And that's what I shared. Those messy moments, those moments of crying in the supermarket, the moments of okay, it's day 34 and I'm still crying. Okay. Running to the supermarket to get more ice cream because ice cream and whiskey is what we're living on right now. Is it pretty? No, but it's life.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say in that is it's more about sharing who you are and where you're at in the moment because you want to share it rather than sharing it for some ulterior motive like you want to lure people into a book sale. Right? It's really just you sharing your life because you want to.
Yeah. And it's making people also realize that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay not to have, your shit together. Yesterday was in emotional, I was just in an emotional space yesterday, feeling all sorts of things. It's like I moved through it. At the end of the day, I shared. It was an emotional day. My Cyber Monday was a hot mess. My Cyber Monday deal didn't go, the offer I wanted to put out, didn't go the way that I expected. I didn't put it out because I'm not going to put something out that's not aligned. It's being true to yourself and where you're at. And that's what people resonate with. We all know what it's like to lose a loved one, to have a breakup, to have a bad day. We all don't know what it's like to sign that, $20 million movie contract or have that $40 million concert tour. We can't relate to that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's some element of if you don't also share the negative, it doesn't allow people to connect with you and really embrace the positive when it happens, right? If you keep putting out just these positive stories of how amazing and magically unicorn, perfect rainbow my life is all the time, people don't necessarily buy it anymore because they don't see any of the other stuff. But if they start to see some of the behind the scenes hot mess, they can really relate to, hey, I'm actually happy for you because I've seen right the work that went into this and all the times you failed until that.
Exactly. It's being part of, that journey. And it's not just the highlight reel. It's like, this is it. I'm giving you behind the scenes. You're seeing, the low, you're seeing the high, you're seeing, that messy middle, because it's the messy middle that I feel that we don't see enough of. It's like we know, Tony Robbins had, that, his story of, having nothing in his bank account and, taking that, risk and going all in on himself. And now he's Tony Robbins, but we don't know his messy middle.
Yeah. The question that I have right now in this moment is how do we not stay stuck in the middle? Because I think that there's a certain mentality for a lot of people when they start sharing their hot mess, or when they start sharing the day-to-day shenanigans that go on, where that can become their normal and they kind of get stuck in that and don't realize at a certain point, you can't live in the mess at a certain point. You got to be able to elevate out of it. There's always going to be stuff that goes on, don't get me wrong. But it shouldn't be the normal. You shouldn't say, hey, it's just a disaster. My life is a mess. Like, I think you still have to elevate to you want to get out of it at some point.
Totally. And it's, honoring what you're feeling and riding that wave. Like life is going to give us, those highs. We're going to paddle out and we're going to catch that wave and we're going to ride it. It's like, ride that wave. But you're also going to get that wave that's going to knock you down, have you tossing and tumbling out, trying to catch your breath, not knowing how to get to the surface, feeling like you're going to die. But you reach the surface and you're like, okay. And you paddle out again and you catch that next wave. It's realizing that life has its highs and its lows. And And when you're in that mess, not sitting there on the bathroom floor crying, saying, why is this happening to me? Why me? Why me? Why me? But what is this showing me? How is this helping me grow? What is this teaching me? What pattern am I in? Why do I keep getting myself in this situation? Why does this keep coming up before me? And starting to recognize our patterns, because we're the reason, as much as we don't want to admit it, we're the reason why we're stuck in this pattern.
So what I'm hearing you say there is it's about really embracing that messy middle for the journey of going from the low to the high, right? Not staying stuck in the middle. Because I think when you stay stuck in the middle, then you keep repeating that and you never get to the high. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it really helps people to understand the messy middle is normal because we definitely don't share enough of that story. Um, I know I very intentionally make an attempt to share more of that for people. Um, the people who have succeeded the most, I think, have often spent the most time in the messy middle, failing, because you need to fail your way forward. I can't think of one person who is super successful who has not had a really dark time in their life. There's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of self doubt, there's a lot of loss.
Yeah, giving up, wanting to throw in the towel, sitting there, banging your head against the wall, looking at another rejection email. It's like, all right, like, or looking at your bank account, going, okay, how am I paying rent this month? Or how am I? All right, like, what am I sacrificing this month? It's like, no, keep going, like, keep going forward. No one's life is perfect. Perfection is a defense. It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. So you would say that most of the people who try and portray this perfect life that they're living are doing so because of some lack of understanding of who they are at the authentic level. So they're just portraying this perfect life because they're afraid to be anything less, because that perfect life defines them.
On some levels, yeah, because it goes back to our childhood.
How so?
Where, like, when we're kids, we're carefree. Like, we truly know who we are when we're kids. But we have someone, who says to us, we draw this drawing that we're so proud of in school, and someone, a popular kid, says, ew, that's ugly. And all of a sudden, like, your confidence gets shut down. You're like, oh, maybe it is ugly. And then we have other things that just happen, things that people say to us, things that transpire. And we start to realize, oh, wait a second, I can't show up as I am. Oh, wait a second, I'm not good enough for this person. And we try to strive for something that doesn't exist. Perfection, it doesn't exist. I mean, look at nature. There's nothing in nature that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could almost make the argument that everything in nature is perfect because of its imperfection.
Like, we're all imperfectly perfect. We're made the way that we were meant to be made, whether we like it or not. So let's embrace who we truly are.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that there's sort of this bell curve, if you will, when you start out as a newborn, where you are operating as your authentic self, and as you move through life in your ages, we'll say, from 8 to 16, where you're getting all this external stimulus, which is weighing down on you, and you are starting to be less authentic and starting to live for other people. And eventually people get to the point, hopefully, where they listen to the show, they speak to people like you and I, where they start to really live more in their authentic self, and they remove those limiting beliefs and understand who they truly are and get back to that authenticity that they were really born with.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you reach a point in life where you look in the mirror and you're like, how did I get here? It's like, who am I? Like, you forget who you are. Like, who am I? Like at my core, at my being, like who am I? You're stuck in this job that doesn't, resonate with you anymore. You're doing things that you don't want to be doing just to please other people. And it's learning that no is the greatest word in the English language. And it's a complete sentence, and not to have guilt and shame around telling people no, not to have guilt and shame about quitting a job that doesn't resonate with you anymore, or moving, throwing all your stuff in storage and out traveling for a year, or moving to someplace new because where you're living, doesn't resonate with you anymore. It's not bringing you joy. It's not bringing you happiness. We're not meant to live in misery. We're meant to live in joy and pleasure and passion. We get stuck in these ruts where we're, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do that. It's like, yes, there are certain things we have to do, yet we can make them fun. We can make them enjoyable. We can make them pleasurable. Taking your child to, soccer practice doesn't have to be, this chore that you don't want to do. It's like, have fun with it.
Yeah. But I think it brings up a good point, especially when you talk about ruts, because ruts exist because we travel the same path over and over again. And we develop that rut in the ground where now we are stuck in, hey, we're continuing this path over and over again because it becomes really difficult to get out of the rut, right? So if you're picturing a cart rolling over dirt and it rolls the same path every day for 15 years, it develops that little rut in the dirt where now next time you try and get out of that, it takes an incredible amount of effort to move the wheels up out of that rut. And I think, when you talk about that, I see a lot of people who are living their day-to-day life, whether it's work or family, whatever it is, they wake up, they get dressed, they go to work, they come home, they operate in their house, they do these daily things almost without thinking every day. And next thing you know, 15 years have passed by where they're just stuck in this routine. And you get to a spot where one day you stop and you look in the mirror and you're like, hey, what is my life right now? What am I actually doing? And I think that that's a normal thing for people to experience.
Yeah. Or you get to the point where, and I witnessed this with my stepdad, where you get to the point of retiring and you don't know what to do with yourself. Because every day since you were, 17 years old, you got up, you went to work, you came home, did, like you said, you did your household, dinner, chores, etc., went to bed and did it all over again.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is where the encouragement in this is for someone to stop right now and recognize the fact that you're operating in a routine or a rut. It's okay to be a little messy and get out of that cycle now rather than waiting until you're 70 years old when you retire, and maybe you never do, right? But part of the reason we have these conversations is to encourage someone, hey, at whatever point in your life you're at, whether that's 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever today is never going to get easier than today. So make today the day that you decide, like, hey, I understand it's going to be messy if I decide to break out of this routine and accept the fact that, hey, my life is not 100% where I want. But if I don't do it today, it's only going to get harder the longer I wait. So to embrace that messy middle where you say, hey, I'm not necessarily exactly where I want to be. I'm going to step out of that rut. Be okay being a little messy for now while I figure it out and get to a spot of joy and purpose and true success. Do I hear that all right?
Yeah, you're hearing that all right. And it's also like, as you were saying that, like what was coming to my mind was, if you're someone who's listening to this as you're driving to work or driving home from work, turn right if you normally turn left. Turn left if you normally turn right. Take a different route home. Take yourself out of autopilot. And that was something when I was teaching and I was noticing my own patterns and ruts that I was in. That was something that I would do. I would take a different, If I normally went straight to go home, I'd make a right. I knew where the road would take me. It's like I changed up my direction that I was driving in every day just to kind of change up my pattern so that I wasn't in like that rut. Yeah, it might take you 5 minutes more to go that way, but what's 5 minutes if it's taking you out of your pattern, taking you out of your routine?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people operate from this spot where they are so busy they can't afford to lose those 5 minutes because it's so critically important that they get home and do this certain thing at a certain time. Meanwhile, they reach the end of the day and realize, like, hey, what did I actually accomplish today? I spent 18 waking hours doing, I don't know what, you know. So I think that's great advice, especially there's definitely times when I've been driving the same route over and over again and you're stuck in thought or whatever it is, and you can't necessarily remember driving the past 5 miles. Like, you took the turns, you stopped at the stop signs, you're still safe in your car, but you don't really consciously remember making the turns, looking at the things you did. Right.
It's like you pull in the driveway and you're like, oh wait, I'm home. Oh, huh? How did I get here?
And I think a lot of people operate their everyday like that, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, and it's taking yourself out of that. So, like I said, change the direction that you're driving out to and from work. Yeah, if you stop to get coffee, change the location. Go to a different coffee shop. Now you clearly pass multiple Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Wawas, whatever, on your route. Like, stop at a different coffee shop. Okay, you might like Starbucks coffee. Stop at a different Starbucks. Change it up. Don't order the same coffee. Order a different coffee. Something small. Something just these little things will make that difference.
Do you think that level of small change implemented often helps people break out of this mentality that everything has to be perfect, or people who are resistant to change? Because I know there's a lot of people who really hate change. And if something is not the exact way that they want it to be, it causes all sorts of chaos to happen. But now when we look at real life is never according to plan. And there's so many things that happen in the course of our day that are not exactly what we want them to be. Uh, I see a lot of people who are needing consistency, who can't have a different version of their morning coffee because it causes their whole day to be off. Struggle then when something else happens in their day that's not according to their plan. So I'm curious if, like, we look at this, and is this a way for people to start accepting that level of, hey, not everything is going to be perfect in my day. I've got to learn to adjust and keep going, right? Not make an excuse, but make an adjustment.
Just make an adjustment. Exactly. It's taking that moment, pausing, oh, pausing, breathing. Like, yes, if you need to have that, moment of, yelling, screaming, cursing, like, go right ahead, get it out of your system. Pause. Even if it needs to be that freak out moment, have it. Pause. Allow your body to feel what it's feeling. Then pivot. Pause and pivot. Because it's in that pivot that you're gonna uncover why what's happening is happening. It's like something better is coming.
It's important what you said there about feeling the feeling. So I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to actually express that, and then they try and neatly put it away in a box and pretend it never existed, but it just eventually boils over. And I'm thinking back to this morning. I woke up, a few different things happened in the course of the first 10 minutes of the day that I was not necessarily wanting to happen. And it set me in not a great direction. I was not in a pleasant mood within the first 10 minutes of being awake this morning. And I said to my wife, I said, hey, I am fit to be tied today. Like, fair warning to you, don't take it personal. I'm not in a good spot right now. But, I owned up to the fact that, hey, I'm not necessarily where I want to be, and felt the feeling. Then went, took a shower, got dressed, did something different, reset. But I say all that to say, I think if I didn't feel the feeling and just bottled it up, I would be holding on to that all day long and snapping at people and whatever else. I felt it. I reset it. Now we're back to square one and we're good, right? We can release that thing and carry on with our day.
Yeah. And it's okay to feel. Like we're taught not to express. We're taught to feel. Okay, but we're taught sometimes not to express, especially those negative, emotions, anger, rage, frustration. They're not pretty, but we all feel them. It's like, let it out, like feel it. Like I always say, feel the feeling, don't become the emotion. Feel the feeling, don't become the emotion.
Yeah, it definitely makes me think of the amount of people I know who do not express their feelings, but hold on to them, and how over time you could see, uh, I don't want to call it the toxic, but for lack of a better term, just the toxic nature of that feeling weighing down on them, and it really drags down who they are. It puts a lot of this weight on their ability to show up as themselves because they're carrying all this stuff they won't release.
Yeah. And it's, there's no shame in crying. There's no shame in crying. There's no shame in yelling or, screaming if you need to scream. Like it's healthy to get it out. My niece is now 8. When she was 4, I lived with my brother for almost a year. And she's a kid who has a lot of, who feels. She has a lot of emotion. And I was having one of those days where just needed to scream. And I could tell that she needed to scream as well. We were feeding off of each other. And I looked at her and I said, Sweet Pea, do you want to have a yelling contest? And she looked at me and she went, oh, yes. And I said, okay, let's go. And we stood in the living room and I went 1, 2, 3. On 3 we go. And counted to 3 and we screamed. And she looked at me and she went, that was fun. Can we do it again? I went, yeah, we can, because I don't know who won. And 1, 2, 3, let's go. And we screamed again. And she looked at me afterwards and she's like, okay, let's go play. I was like, yeah, let's go play. It's like, we both let it out in a healthy manner. We both needed to scream. And this is, something as parents, or when you're in a parent role, it's like you need to also teach the kids how to express themselves in a healthy manner and show them that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. I'm feeling it too. And it was like, my sister-in-law came home from work and she's like, oh, I had a day. I was like, do you need to scream? She's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, Sweet Pea, come on over. She's like, what? I was like, Mommy needs to scream too, so we're going to have a yelling contest again. She's like, we are? I was like, yep, we are. Let's go. Like the 3 of us, we just stood in the living room and we screamed. And my brother came downstairs and he's like, what are you guys doing? And I told him. He's like, ooh, can I get in on that? I was like, yeah, like, let's go. And there we all are, standing in the living room screaming at the top of our lungs because we all just needed to let it out.
I think if we, almost like taking your shower every day, right? It's that daily maintenance prevents it from becoming a problem. So if you had maybe a relationship where you could vent out these frustrations or just be a little bit more open with, hey, this is what I'm feeling, it wouldn't get to the point of feeling like I need to scream.
Exactly. Trying to also come up with healthy things. For a 4-year-old, it's like a 4-year-old can't really talk it out yet.
Yeah. So it makes me question now when we look at the parent to child relationship, where we want to teach our children healthy ways to deal with their emotions, right? With how to express their feelings, all this stuff in a healthy manner so they don't bottle it up. And one of the things I think about is we have a set of parents currently who are maybe not as skilled at being able to do that for themselves, now teaching their kids ways to do it, which maybe aren't the best. So we look at this current generation of children, their parents, and their parents' parents. The parents' parents are what most call the greatest generation, or that era. A lot of those people didn't necessarily express their feelings. It was suck it up, carry on.
Exactly. We're the same generation. Yes.
Right? So they raised sort of my generation of parents who are now dealing with that themselves, where they look at, hey, I didn't grow up with a scenario where I was able to feel feelings. You kind of sucked it up and carried it on. And a lot of the current parents don't have the tools they need to handle their own emotions. How do we expect them to raise the next generation of kids to do the same?
Oh, it's a good question. It's unpacking your own stuff and parenting your inner child and parenting your child sometimes in a manner that you wanted to be, parented in. And one of the things that my niece does now to express things is she draws. She draws, she writes. Thanksgiving, she had come home and my brother, it was late, and my brother told her that it was like 9:30, and told her it was bedtime, time to get ready for bed. She has to watch TV, and my brother said no, and she went and she drew a picture of a TV, a girl and a girl crying. And it's like she was upset that she couldn't watch TV, so that was a healthy manner. So it's like, give your kids crayons, give them a notepad, give them crayons, give them colored pencils. Let them write it out, draw it out, color it out. Now, even if it's taking that crayon and really pressing hard and just scribbling all over the paper, let them get that anger, let them get that frustration out. And even if you have to do the same thing, take that crayon and just scribble on the paper to get it out.
Yeah. So I think the lesson there is really finding a way to express that in a way that works for you individually, and having some safe environment, whether it's you alone with a piece of paper, or you sitting in your car just blasting music, or you having a good friend who you can be open and honest with, who's not going to judge you and criticize you, but give you a safe space to feel your feelings out loud. Right. So I think it's finding that form of expression where you can get it out and be yourself.
Absolutely. And even if it's also turning on some music and dancing.
Yeah. And I think, just to sort of tie that all together, we have to go back to it being totally okay to be messy in the middle. Like, being okay with, hey, some days you're going to have a frustrating morning. Some days you're going to have a screaming contest with your niece. It's going to happen. But we don't necessarily share that a lot. We just want to share, hey, here's a picture of a beautiful steak dinner I had. Here's a nice vacation I went on. Here's my nice car. These are the stories that we're sharing with each other, and not, hey, I'm having a frustrating day. I want you to understand this is where I'm at, so you can understand, hey, if you wake up and you happen to have a frustrating day too, hey, it's normal. Hey, here's a way you can deal with it. And we don't have those conversations enough.
No, we don't. I mean, even right before hopping on with you, I went into the bathroom to go grab something, and came out of the bathroom, and the dog has the case to my ring light and is running around the house with it. I'm like, I'm not chasing you. I'm not chasing you. Like, here's your frisbee. Like, you want your frisbee? Al, give me the case. It's like, Al, the little things like that. It's like, I could have let that gotten me all upset, all frustrated, chase the dog around the house. It wouldn't have solved anything. It just would have made me more angry, more frustrated. It's like, things happen. We have to learn how to roll with them, which does take a lot of work and a lot of understanding of self. But we have to roll with them instead of letting them get us all worked up.
Right. So I know for a lot of people, myself included, that's not really that easy. You know, it sounds easy in concept to just let it roll off and just keep it moving. But in the moment, sometimes it's really difficult to not fall victim to getting really upset and letting that affect your mood for the next, however long. Sometimes people let it affect them for a long time. What are some ways that you've seen for people to start building that muscle where they can sort of be more comfortable and more flexible in letting things roll off?
Oh, pause. Like, pause. Take that moment and feel what you're feeling. There's no shame in pausing for 30 seconds to, like, okay, like what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Um, and then take that breath. Take that. We tend to breathe very very shallow. It's like take that deep breath from your belly, from your diaphragm, and let it out however that breath wants to come out. Repeat that a couple times. The whole process here might take a minute and a half. But in that time span, the world is not going to end if you stop for, a minute or 2 minutes. Take that time just to, okay, realize what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And then move forward. However it is you're choosing to move forward, move forward.
I think even just admitting the fact that you are operating in a space of a negative mindset can be empowering. Just to be aware of where you're at.
Yeah, it's acknowledging what you're not acknowledging. Just taking that moment and pausing and like, all right, it's okay to feel what I'm feeling right now. I'm gonna feel this. I'm gonna sit in it. I'm gonna be in it. It's not gonna define my day. But I'm gonna feel this because we're in control. Now it's feeling it and then doing those things. If it's I know for myself, it's like music is a big thing for me. I feel music. So it's like sometimes when I'm in that angry, frustrated, like space, it's like, okay, it's 9 Inch Nails, it's Tool, it's we're going hardcore here. We're going 90s hardcore here. It's like, okay, I'm gonna feel that. But I'm gonna flip that switch. I'm gonna get through a few songs. I'm gonna take myself back to that time in life because that's what music does when we go back to music of our youth. It takes us back to that time period and we start to shift and we don't even realize what that music that we're listening to is doing as to like, oh yeah, that's the song that came on during this, or and we start, those memories start coming in. And that's the great thing about music. It's like it especially, it just triggers the memories and we can flip ourselves sometimes, even if it's being in that angry state. It's like, oh yeah, this was the song that.
Yeah, and there's definitely sometimes where I will intentionally put on some music to embrace that frustrated feeling, sort of let it out. And then you're right, after a few songs, you go back and you change it to something else that's going to flip you into a more positive, uplifting mood.
Exactly. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna, scream it out singing. And then, I'm gonna switch it to, something else. And then, dance it out. Cry it out. Whatever it might be. But music is great in that capacity.
So if we look at figuring out how to find each person's individual hot mess magic, right? So if we look at like, hey, how does Jane Smith figure out what her hot mess magic is? Is it really just a matter of embracing your authentic self, imperfections and all, and saying, hey, this is who I am? take it or leave it. I am going to celebrate the highs, the lows, and everything in between as I continue to grow and find out what my best version is. Like, what's the process for figuring out where the magic is?
Sometimes we don't even see the magic as it's happening, and that's okay. It's letting it out, letting it unfold, and out. I've been deep in reflection over the past few days of 2024. And as I've been sitting here in reflection, it's like, all right, I went through this morning and I wrote down the months, wrote out the months, and then I took each month and I gave it a word or a phrase for that month. And as I was doing this, I realized where the messes were within each one of those months, but also where the magic was in each one of those months. So sometimes we don't see it as it's happening, and that's okay. It's taking that time to pause and to reflect back and to look at how far we've come. Because so often we don't do that. We say the past is the past. I'm not going back there. I'm not looking back there. And we're even told, like, don't look back. It's like sometimes we have to look back to see how far we've come.
Yeah. Do you think that there is some, for lack of a better term, I'll use again, magic in looking back at something that was a messy period in your life that now everything has worked itself out? And you look back on that period that was very messy and you say, hey, all those things were in the moment I thought the world was over. Maybe the plan that I had wanted to come to fruition didn't, but now that this thing has actually unfolded, I'm really happy with how it did. So I'm grateful for the mess that was because it brought me to this place.
Yeah, I am a huge fan in expressing the gratitude for the mess and thanking that past version of self for getting through it and to getting you to where you are today, because it's that mess that made you stronger. It's that mess that made you more resilient. It's that mess that opened your eyes to something or made you pivot or had some impact, some change on your life. It happened for a reason. So it's expressing the gratitude for that reason, even if that reason doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I feel like the phrase there would be you can't receive the message without the mess. Like the mess is an important part of the message.
Yeah. I mean, because the mess is in literally the message. It's like we can't spell message without mess. I mean,
We spend so much time avoiding the mess that we also often avoid the message that we're trying to receive.
yes. And we sometimes sit there, and I even said this to a friend the other day. I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, I feel like I'm not seeing something or I'm not hearing something. And they're like, no, you're hearing it. You're seeing it. You're waiting for something to happen that isn't going to happen. It's like you're in the wait, but the wait isn't a passive wait, it's an active wait. And I was like, huh? She's like, you're hearing everything, you're seeing everything, you're taking the actions. And you're waiting for those actions to unfold, like the progress of those actions, the success, the fruition, like everything from those to unfold. She's like, keep going. I was like, okay. It's like, so sometimes we're seeing and we're hearing things. It's just, we got to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I really think that's an important part for people to understand, and a great reminder for all of us is that so many times the answer to what we're looking for is really already in front of us. But if we keep ignoring the mess, we're never going to see it.
Exactly. It's just keep moving forward. Like keep moving forward. It's like, even like I have an image right now of just shoveling snow. It's like just keep pushing. Like the snow's the mess. It's like just keep pushing the snow, like pushing that mess to the side to pave your path forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting analogy you bring that up. I was thinking the other day about when it snows. For people who've shoveled snow, this analogy will hopefully make more sense. There's two types of people, really. When there's a blizzard, you look outside, and there's the one neighbor who doesn't do anything until all the snow stops. Then they go outside, and there's a foot of snow. They have to try and shovel their walkway out. Then there's the other neighbor who every half an hour, like clockwork, will go outside and he'll walk one lap back and forth with a shovel, and maybe he's scooping up half an inch of snow at a time, but he's not laboring, right? So it's that really routine process of going and clearing the mess, right, every half an hour compared to the person who just lets it pile up and has to deal with it. It's backbreaking work. Yeah, you're going to move the same amount of snow, right? But you've done it in such a easy, convenient way because you've dealt with the mess in shorter increments. And I think, you look at that, compare it to the mess or the snowfall in our lives of things that are going on as we deal with them every day in shorter and shorter bursts. So just keep it really simple. Hey, when this thing comes up, we handle it in the moment and then we move on rather than letting it pile up, pushing that emotion in a box until it eventually overflows into this big backbreaking process to get rid of.
Exactly. And, some messes, if we're sticking with, this snow analogy, it's like some messes are going to be a blizzard. While other messes are, going to be this just powdery, puffy, gorgeous, snowfall. Where it's like, yeah, it's a magical mess as it's happening. It's like, sometimes messes happen, and that blizzard is like it's white out, like you can't see anything in front of you. It's like, and what do you do like when you're driving through a whiteout? You pull over, you pause, you let that squall go through, or you get behind, a plow, and you let the plow, pave the way, plow the way forward, for you and follow their lights. But you don't blindly drive through that blizzard.
Yeah, I love that. This has been a very interesting and kind of all over the place conversation, which I guess is fairly appropriate for the topic. But I really just wanted to thank you for how you showed up in this conversation and for sharing all that you shared. I personally appreciate it. And again, just want to honor you for doing the work that you do. It's probably not always the prettiest, especially when you're embracing the mess, but I think it's really, really, really beneficial. And I love that you continue to do it because people need to hear it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. My pleasure. If there were any one specific thing you can give someone today, whether it's a piece of advice, a quote, perspective, a mindset that would help them have a better day and kind of level up their life, what might that be for you?
Make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.
I love that. It's good advice. And I think people miss the fact that it takes just as much energy to be pissed off as it does to be grateful. And it's way more fun to be grateful.
Yep.
Well, again, honor to you for how you showed up today. I appreciate it a lot. And where can people follow you, engage some more, learn about your book? Where might they go?
You can find me on Instagram at Michelle A. Burke. My website as well is Michelle A. Burke. I tend to be more on Instagram than my website. And that's where all the magic and the mess and all the good stuff, lies, as well as, my own podcast, where not only do I share my messes, but I have guests come on and share their messes as well and the magic that they've discovered within that.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.